December 21, 1998, Las Vegas. $1 million. 1 bullet. 3 terrified hostages. And a robbery that would haunt an entire city. But the most terrifying part? The criminals never even opened the front door. This isn't just a heist, it's a ticking time bomb that explodes into murder, betrayal, and a manhunt so intense it ended with a massacre. Hit subscribe now and turn on the notification bell, because you won't believe where this story ends. It started like any other work night for a married couple running a small janitorial business in Las Vegas. With them was the husband's 18-year-old sister, a quiet teenager helping out for the holidays. They had cleaned that same bank building dozens of times. It was routine, mundane, even. But just as they entered their van, 2 masked men came out of the darkness. Guns drawn. Commands barked. Panic set in. Get in the van. Don't talk. Don't think. They didn't resist. They couldn't. In seconds, zip ties cut into their wrists. Blindfolds shut out the world. A night of cleaning had become a nightmare on wheels. From a small radio, a female voice crackled in. "Cartoon, are you in position?" The crew wasn't just armed, they were organized. Military-style precision. Surveillance-grade planning. And they had one goal. Rob the Bank of America's central ATM vault, and vanish. 11 p.m. The janitor's van pulled into the usual lot outside the Bank of America ATM processing center. There was no rush, no broken windows, and no alarms. Everything looked normal. That was the plan. Inside the van, the captives were trembling. The 18-year-old was separated and kept as collateral. The couple was ordered to act like nothing had happened. Go clean. Stick to your routine. If you try anything, she dies. The couple walked into the building. Key card, passcode, doors open. The alarm system? Bypassed. The gunman had just walked into a fortress without tripping a single wire. This wasn't a robbery. It was a ghost operation. And it had only just begun. 11:30 p.m. The armored truck arrived right on schedule. 2 security guards stepped out, casual and alert, as always. They called the alarm company to verify entry. The system confirmed only the janitors were inside. The guards saw nothing suspicious. Just the janitor van in the parking lot. Inside, the building was calm. The janitors mopped floors and emptied bins, just like they were supposed to. The vault door creaked open. Inside, $1,088,000 in cold, shrink-wrapped cash. Then, it happened. The gunman struck. The guards barely had time to react. One moved too fast. A gunshot thundered through the vault. The bullet ricocheted, slamming into a guard's chest. He collapsed, blood soaking his uniform. His partner screamed into the radio, "My partner's down. We need an ambulance." The robbers grabbed the cash and fled into the dark, leaving behind a scene of blood, fear, and silence. Moments later, red and blue lights bled across the building's walls. FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf stepped through the vault doors. The air smelled like copper and panic. One guard was unconscious. The janitors were pale, trembling, and too terrified to speak. The suspects. Descriptions were almost useless, just shadows. 2 men. Masked. Male. Could be white, black, or Hispanic. 6 feet tall, maybe more. Around 200 pounds. Nothing unique. Nothing that could help. But one detail stuck. The robbers paused when they saw the security cameras, visibly surprised. Which meant something critical. They'd never been inside before. This was no inside job. The FBI was facing ghosts, calculating, invisible, and already $1 million richer. Hours after the robbery, while the vault was still echoing with trauma, a new lead emerged. A truck driver, making a late-night delivery just blocks from the bank, reported something strange. He saw 2 men sprinting out of the Bank of America building. In their hands, black duffel bags. They weren't panicked. They were moving with purpose. The witness watched them toss the bags into the bed of a white Chevy S10 pickup truck. Then they peeled off into the night. That tip was the first crack in the ghost wall the robbers had built. Within minutes, every patrol unit in the city was put on alert. All units, be on the lookout for a white Chevy S10, last seen near West Flamingo. Suspects armed and dangerous. Not long after the APB went out, the Chevy S10 was found, parked quietly in a residential neighborhood just a quarter-mile from the robbery. No driver, no money, just silence. But when investigators ran the plates, what they found was chilling. The truck was a police vehicle, a maintenance unit that had been stolen from a Las Vegas Metro police lot just 1 week earlier. The robbers weren't just bold. They were mocking law enforcement. They had used a stolen cop truck to commit the biggest bank heist in city history, and then abandoned it just around the corner. This wasn't luck. This was logistics. And somewhere nearby, they'd already switched vehicles. A woman living near where the Chevy was found told police something odd. Earlier that evening, another truck had been parked in the exact same spot. A white GMC Dually, heavy-duty, 4 wheels on the back axle. A rare vehicle and a perfect candidate for a fast getaway. The FBI now believed this. The robbers ditched the stolen Chevy in a suburban neighborhood. Then they jumped into the GMC Dually and vanished before the crime was even discovered. This wasn't some desperate snatch and grab. This was military-grade planning. The FBI issued a citywide APB for the GMC truck and mobilized surveillance at all major routes out of the city. They were working fast. But the robbers had a 1-hour head start, and $1 million reason to stay ahead. Back at the hospital, there was finally good news. The guard who had been shot, after hours of surgery, survived. But the Bank of America had taken its hit. The count was official. $1,088,000 stolen. The largest bank robbery in Las Vegas history. FBI agents launched into full interrogation mode. Everyone, from the armored car guards to every janitor, bank employee, and external contractor, was interviewed. Some were even polygraph tested. But the results were clean. No one inside the bank had tipped off the robbers. No one had seen a thing. No one was involved. Which left the FBI with a terrifying realization. The robbers learned everything, access codes, schedules, routes, by simply watching. No hacking. No insiders. Just cold, calculated observation. And now, they were gone. But not forever. A week after the robbery, the case was stalling. Leads were dry. Surveillance footage revealed masked faces, and no prints had turned up anything useful. Then, a spark. Security at McCarran International Airport called the FBI. Someone had called their office asking a strange question. Will a large amount of cash trigger the metal detectors? Security traced the call using caller ID. The number led to a residential address in the Las Vegas suburbs. It wasn't much, but it was something. The FBI set up a silent stakeout. They watched the house for hours. People came and went every 30 minutes. A few stayed longer. Some carried small bags. Some left empty-handed. It looked like a drug operation. Or maybe something worse. Agents decided to knock on the door. Inside, a sweet, middle-aged woman with a piano. She was a music teacher, running 30-minute lessons. And the $3,000 she had? She'd saved it for a trip to Utah. Dead end. The call was innocent. The house was clean. The FBI was back to square one. Later that same day, the phone rang again, but this time, it wasn't security. It was a woman responding to the $50,000 reward flyer. She told the FBI about her friend, a stripper named Jennifer Arden. Jennifer, she said, had been spending money like crazy. Designer bags, jewelry, wads of cash, big tips at the club. It didn't add up. She didn't have a new sugar daddy.
No sudden windfall.
Just a mysterious boyfriend and a flood of unexplainable cash right after the robbery. The FBI asked for a number. She gave them one. They traced it to a trailer on the outskirts of town. Agents rolled up slowly and parked at a distance. Minutes passed. Then, a white GMC truck pulled into the trailer's driveway. The same make and model was spotted on the night of the robbery. That was enough. They secured a search warrant, and minutes later, SWAT descended on the property. When they kicked open the door, they found a man sitting calmly in the living room. He said his name was Riley Bates, Jennifer's boyfriend. The team began their sweep. The trailer was a dump. Trash on the floor. Dirty laundry. Peeling wallpaper. But in the back bedroom, something stood out. A brand new, gleaming, heavy-duty safe. It didn't belong. In a place where the carpet didn't cover the stains and the furniture looked salvaged, this safe was suspiciously out of place. They asked Riley for the combination. He claimed it belonged to Jennifer. "I don't know it," he insisted. So the agents called Jennifer, now at her strip club, mid-shift. She laughed it off. "That's Riley's safe. Why would I know the combination?" Agents went back to Riley. Caught in the lie, he sighed, and gave them the numbers. Click. Inside the safe, $50,000 in cash. And bags of marijuana. Riley didn't flinch. He swore the money was from weed sales. He claimed he'd made it slowly, over time. But the agents weren't buying it. A drug dealer with $50,000 in cash doesn't live in a trailer with a floor fan duct taped to the wall. Still, there was no direct proof. Not yet. But what do I know? Riley's girlfriend was a stripper spending high-end money. He had $50,000 in a brand new safe. And he was driving the same GMC truck used in the escape. The walls were closing in. And Riley knew it. He wasn't going to confess. But he was about to give them a name. A name that would change everything. With the safe opened and $50,000 staring back at him, Riley Bates knew the game was up. But he was still playing defense. He repeated the same story. "It's just drug money. Weed sales. That's it." But the agents weren't buying it. One leaned in. "You didn't do the robbery, Riley?" "Fine. Then who did?" A long pause. Then a sigh. "My brother, Robert. And his friend, Tim Blackburn." The agents didn't flinch. They asked the next question carefully. "Where are they now?" Riley shrugged. "I don't know." But he was lying again. Because inside the trailer, agents had already found the next clue, a small stack of casino chips and receipts from the Luxor, dated days after the robbery. Two agents rushed to the Luxor Hotel, a towering pyramid on the Las Vegas Strip, where fortunes rise and fall nightly. They went straight to management and asked, "Is Robert Bates staying here?" He was. And he was spending hard and fast. Room service, bar tabs, gifts, drugs, club entries. He wasn't just partying, he was burning money. His guest account read like the lifestyle of a man trying to forget he was running from the law. Agents set up surveillance and waited for him to return. When he did, it was clear something was off. His eyes were glazed. His walk, slow and unstable. He was high. Maybe pills. Maybe coke. Probably both. They didn't bother asking questions. There was no point. Not in that state. Instead, they searched the room. Inside the Luxor suite, the scene was reckless. Drugs on the nightstand. A loaded handgun in the drawer. $5,000 in stacked bills beside the bed. And a man who had once helped steal over $1 million. Now lounging in designer sheets, spending it like it was Monopoly money. But there was one problem. They were still nearly $1 million short. Bates wasn't talking. He barely knew what planet he was on. So the FBI turned their eyes to the second name Riley gave them. Tim Blackburn. They found Timothy Blackburn's address and surrounded the house. He wasn't there. But someone else was. A black SUV rolled up fast, then suddenly accelerated straight at the agents, tires squealing, engine roaring. Before they could react, the vehicle skidded sideways and stopped. The driver flung the door open and ran. Officers sprinted after him, guns drawn. But it wasn't Tim. It was his sister-in-law, and she wasn't talking. Meanwhile, search dogs were brought in. They scoured backyards, alleyways, and trash bins. 2 blocks away, a K9 found movement under a wooden deck. It was Tim. He was hiding in the dirt, soaked in sweat. On his ankle, an empty holster. His gun had been lost while jumping fences. Timothy Blackburn, the second masked robber, was now in FBI custody. But the manhunt wasn't over. Because the money wasn't found. And the agents were beginning to suspect. The woman closest to him, his wife, Sophia Blackburn, was hiding something far more dangerous than cash. With Robert Bates and Tim Blackburn both in custody, the FBI took a breath. But only for a moment. Because something didn't sit right. Sophia Blackburn, Tim's wife, had visited her husband multiple times since his arrest. She cried. She denied everything. She claimed she had no idea what her husband had done. No idea about the robbery. No idea about the weapons, the surveillance equipment, or the flex cuffs the FBI found in their house. But her story had holes. Her timeline didn't add up. Her alibi didn't hold. And worst of all, she couldn't explain how nearly $1 million vanished without a trace from their modest suburban life. Agents pressed. Sophia played dumb. But what they didn't know was that Sophia had a plan. August 11, 1999. 7 months after the robbery, Sophia entered the North Las Vegas detention center, just like she had many times before. She smiled at the guards. She passed through the checkpoint. She carried nothing suspicious, just a keychain, a purse, and her calm, quiet demeanor. But tucked inside that keychain was something small, almost invisible. A tiny screwdriver tool, just big enough to loosen the screws on the plexiglass window divider in the visitation booth. While the guard briefly stepped away, Tim got to work. He unscrewed the window silently and quickly. And then, in a move that shocked everyone, he dove through. He sprinted into the Sally Port, vaulting over prisoners, security rails, and metal benches. Before the guards even registered what had happened, he was at the second door, and it opened. Outside, waiting at a nearby parking lot, Sophia, in a getaway vehicle, and tucked under a nearby car, a loaded handgun, planted earlier that morning. Sophia tossed it to Tim as he ran. Gunshots rang out. Chaos exploded. Tim Blackburn had just escaped federal custody. The city of Las Vegas was now in lockdown mode. The FBI, the U.S. Marshals, Las Vegas Metro PD, every agency mobilized. Helicopters circled. SWAT geared up. This wasn't just a manhunt, it was a warpath. The fugitive had a head start, a gun, and nothing to lose. He'd already shot a guard. He'd broken out of jail. Now, he was running, and he was willing to kill. Agents interviewed every relative, every friend, and every associate. They searched every house he might hide in. They seized vehicles. They cross-referenced financial activity. They monitored gas stations and hotels. And they found nothing. 4 days, Tim and Sophia disappeared. But they weren't hiding in a bunker. They were doing something far more dangerous. They were running with their 2 daughters, little girls, now on the run with a man the FBI considered armed, desperate, and unstable. 9 days passed. Then, a breakthrough. A police helicopter, flying over the edge of the Nevada desert, spotted a vehicle parked far off any road. A Nissan Pathfinder, the same one registered to Sophia's sister, parked near it. A family of 4. From the air, it was too far to confirm identities. There's no way to know if it was Tim. No way to risk getting closer without tipping them off. The FBI assembled fast. SWAT teams, snipers, and tactical gear. They surrounded the area, but by the time they moved in, it wasn't them. It was just another family, completely innocent. Another dead end. And now, the FBI faced a terrifying possibility. Tim Blackburn wasn't just hiding. He was blending in. Moving between safe houses. Relying on family. Planning his next move. And he still had a gun. He still had support. And he had 2 little girls in the backseat. The FBI was tired of chasing shadows. Tim Blackburn had escaped custody, shot at federal agents, and vanished with his wife and daughters. The city was tense. The media was circling. Everyone was asking the same question. How could a man like that disappear? The answer: family. Tim's brother had already been arrested. His girlfriend had cooperated. His wife had orchestrated a jailbreak. And now, Sophia's sister and brother-in-law were drawing attention. The FBI began targeting them, not with force, but with strategy. They interrogated Sophia's sister about her vehicle, the Nissan Pathfinder spotted in the desert. She claimed it was in the shop. But agents checked. It wasn't. It had been seen, moved, used, cleaned. She was lying. So the FBI arrested her for obstruction. Then they turned to Tim's brother. Earlier, agents had found a brand new driver's license on him. One was issued just days after the jailbreak. When asked where the old one went, he claimed he lost it. But they knew the truth. He had given it to Tim, helping him assume a new identity. He, too, was arrested for aiding and abetting a fugitive. With 2 key family members in custody, the FBI wasn't just hunting anymore. They were applying psychological pressure. They were turning up the heat. With most of Tim's family now behind bars, the FBI changed tactics. They reached out to one of Tim's closest friends, a man who worked as a bouncer at a local gentleman's club. He was quiet, loyal, dangerous. When they asked what he knew, he shrugged, said nothing, protected Tim like a brother. But then one agent leaned in. "You were the last person Tim called after the jailbreak. You heard the sirens in the background. And he'll call you again." The bouncer folded his arms, silent. So the FBI made a move. "When he does, we want you to lie to him. Tell him we've arrested his brother. Tell him his sister-in-law is in custody. Tell him everyone who helped him is paying the price." The bouncer hesitated. Then, he agreed. They didn't tap the phone. They didn't record it. They didn't need to. They just waited. And the very next day, the phone rang. It was Tim. He sounded wired, frantic, angry. The friend told him what the FBI instructed. That his support system was crumbling. That everyone who helped him was locked up or being hunted. Tim didn't say much. But before hanging up, he growled one word: "Bastards." The FBI smiled. He was angry. Which meant he was scared. Which meant he was close to making a mistake. 2.5 weeks after the jailbreak, the case took an unexpected turn. A Las Vegas SWAT officer reached out to Agent Henry Schlumpf. He had met an informant who claimed that Tim Blackburn was back in Las Vegas. Schlumpf didn't buy it. Why would a fugitive, wanted by every agency in Nevada, return to the city he escaped from? But he asked the informant one question: "Can you name Tim's daughters?" Without hesitation, the man named both girls. That was all Agent Schlumpf needed. The tip was legit. Tim had returned to the city he escaped from. He was either reckless or ready for something final. The FBI didn't wait. They launched covert surveillance across every long-stay motel and extended-stay complex in the metro area. And soon, they landed at one specific location, a rundown budget motel with no cameras, weekly rates, and a perfect view of the Strip. They didn't see Tim or Sophia, yet. But something in the air said, the end was coming. The FBI wasn't taking chances. They'd been burned by false tips before. But this time, the trail felt different. Hot, fresh, real. Agents arrived at the long-term stay motel near the Las Vegas Strip and immediately began scanning the vehicles in the lot. Nothing was stolen. Nothing traced back to Tim's family. Still, Agent Henry Schlumpf wasn't convinced. So they decided to set a trap. A plainclothes officer, posing as motel security, went door to door, knocking politely. "Noise complaints," he explained. "Just checking in." Apartment by apartment, door by door, faces emerged, some annoyed, some confused. And then, Sophia Blackburn opened her door. Smiling, relaxed, rested. She looked nothing like a fugitive on the run. Agent Schlumpf couldn't believe it. 17 days. Hunted. Chased. And there she was, fresh-faced and smiling like it was a vacation. They had her. But now came the harder part. Was Tim inside? And if he was, were the kids with him? Once Sophia was confirmed, the FBI's criminal apprehension team, along with Las Vegas SWAT and US Marshals, moved fast. They locked down the apartment complex in minutes. Residents were evacuated. Perimeters were sealed. Only one door remained untouched. The apartment Sophia had just come from. Agents couldn't risk a breach. Not yet. They needed to know. Was Tim inside? So they called the landline. It rang once. Twice. Then. Hello. It was Tim Blackburn. Alive. Inside. Calm. Agent Schlumpf took the call. Tim, this is Henry. You know who I am. Tim chuckled, like it was an old friend catching up. The FBI had confirmed their worst fear. Tim Blackburn was barricaded inside. With Sophia. And their 2 young daughters. Schlumpf kept Tim on the line. He needed to stall. To keep him calm. To buy time. Tim's voice was steady. Too steady. Like he'd already made peace with something. I'm not going back to jail, Henry. I can't. My girls don't deserve that. Sophia occasionally took the phone. Her voice was softer. Frightened. But not of the FBI. If I leave, he'll do something. I know he will. Schlumpf pleaded. Let the girls go. Open the door. We can work something out. But Sophia wouldn't move. She was afraid, not of the law, but of her husband. Outside, SWAT command prepared for the worst. They set explosives at the door in case a breach became necessary. Snipers lined rooftops. The scene was quiet, but electrified. Inside, the girls' laughter could occasionally be heard. Soft. Innocent. Oblivious to the danger around them. Then Tim asked the unthinkable. Hey Henry, what's the best place to shoot yourself in the head? Schlumpf's throat tightened. Tim wasn't bluffing. He was spiraling. And in the next few hours, he would make a decision that would scar everyone on the scene, and end the story in the worst possible way. Inside that dim motel apartment, the air was thick with dread. On the other end of the line, Agent Henry Schlumpf tried everything. He kept Tim talking. Kept him calm. Kept him from reaching for the gun. But the tone was changing. Tim stopped bargaining. He stopped joking. He started reflecting. I took the girls to San Diego. We were right there by Mexico. I could have crossed. But I didn't. Schlumpf listened. This wasn't about escape anymore. It was about control. Pride. Finality. Sophia picked up the phone next. He won't let us go. He's not going back. And I can't leave him. Her voice cracked. Not from fear, but loyalty. A kind of emotional captivity even the FBI couldn't break. Outside, the SWAT team was losing patience. They'd been listening for 4 hours. And now, they were preparing for the worst. Entry charges were rigged. Tactical positions locked. Medical teams stood by. The only thing standing between life and tragedy was a phone line. Inside, Tim's voice grew heavier. I don't want my girls to see me in jail. I don't want them to remember me like that. Schlumpf tried everything. He begged. Let the kids out. They're innocent. Just open the door and let them walk. But in the background, the girls were laughing. Playing. Oblivious. Tim had put them in the bathtub. He said it was for protection. But the SWAT commander feared the worst. That it was a setup for a murder-suicide. Sophia was the wild card. She held on to hope. But the more she spoke with Tim, the more she seemed to resign herself to his fate. They were a family on a ticking clock. And time was running out. Then Tim asked again. You think it's quick? A shot to the temple? The line went quiet. Schlumpf could barely breathe. He changed tactics, redirected. Tim, listen to me. There's another way. Just come out. Just open the door. There was no answer. Just the faint sound of children's voices, and the click of a phone being set down. 4 hours and 17 minutes since the standoff began. The order came down. Breach. Go. The charge blew the door off its hinges. Flashbangs lit the dark apartment. SWAT rushed in, fast and surgical. They reached the bathroom in seconds. But it was already too late. Tim Blackburn's body was crumpled on the tile. Sophia lay beside him, dead from a single gunshot wound. In the bathtub, the 2 little girls, shot in the head, were still breathing. Barely. One SWAT officer screamed for a medic. He grabbed the smallest child and ran, arms trembling, voice breaking. Paramedics took over. They worked fast. They worked hard. But both girls died in their arms. The moment broke even the toughest men in that room. Hardened agents. SWAT veterans. Career lawmen. They wept. Because this wasn't a takedown. It was a massacre of innocents. And the man behind it never planned to leave that motel alive. The crime scene at the Las Vegas motel was still. Silent. Outside, yellow tape fluttered in the dry wind. Inside, for lives had ended, 2 adults by choice, and 2 innocent children as collateral. The FBI swept the room. There were no manifestos, no goodbye notes, just fragments of a fugitive's unraveling. For all his planning, all his tactical maneuvering, Tim Blackburn's escape had led nowhere. Not to freedom. Not to redemption. Just to death. And the destruction of a family. Weeks later, in a quiet federal courtroom in Las Vegas, the rest of the story faced justice. Riley Bates, the man who cracked first, pled guilty to possession of stolen money. His girlfriend, Jennifer Arden, who claimed the cash was just from dancing, also pled guilty. They were sentenced to 1 year each, light sentences in exchange for their cooperation. Sophia's sister, who lied about the whereabouts of the Pathfinder and helped hide the family, also received 1 year for obstruction of justice. But the weight came down hardest on one man still alive. Robert Bates, Tim's original partner in the robbery. He stood in a courtroom, stone-faced, silent, as a judge sentenced him to 24 years in federal prison for bank robbery, kidnapping, carjacking, use of a firearm in a violent crime. There was no appeal. No public apology. Just the cold clang of a gavel, and a life swallowed by prison. Months passed. Agent Henry Schlumpf, the man who spoke with Tim in his final hours, remained haunted. The call replayed in his head, Tim's voice, steady but broken. The girls' laughter in the background. The moment the line went dead. He spoke in interviews, but never with bravado. Tim was always coming back to die, he said quietly. He wasn't looking for a way out. He was writing his ending. And he wasn't going to let anyone change the ending but him. Schlumpf had faced countless violent criminals in his career. But this case was different. This one took something from him. Something he couldn't get back. The Bank of America building still stands. The armored guards still patrol their routes. The vault has long since been repaired. But for Las Vegas law enforcement, the Blackburn case is a scar. Not just because it was the biggest cash robbery in city history, but because it ended with the murder of 2 children, the suicide of a father, and a family ripped apart by pride, desperation, and blood. There are no memorials.
No plaques.
Just a memory that reminds agents why they chase down every lead. Why they don't give up. Because sometimes the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones trying to escape. They're the ones who've already decided they're never coming back. In the end, this wasn't just a robbery. It was a warning about how far desperation can go and how even the best laid plans can end in tragedy. One man's greed cost 4 lives and left a permanent scar on everyone who tried to stop him. If stories like this leave you thinking long after the video ends, hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and join us for more chilling true crime cases that expose the darkest corners of human nature. What do you think drove Tim Blackburn to make that final decision? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one.